Divine greetings, ones and zeros, zeros and ones, boys and girls that are now men and women, kings and queens, gods and goddesses of this spiritual divine matrix. Welcome. My name is Clay. Today, I want to have a share about this topic, the wounded healer, alchemizing personal pain into collective feminine strength. And as I go into this topic, I want to remind myself of the reason why I'm doing these videos, these shares. I'm doing these shares to be a part of the collective, to rewire my mind in a vulnerable state so as to connect with individuals out there that are of like minds, that would appreciate what it is that I am being vulnerable about. Those of us who can relate, those of us who can share in each other's experience. And with that being said, the wounded healer, we are all wounded healers. We all have the potential to be wounded healers. As my partner has healed or allowed me to receive healing through her. Because one of the things, and I phrase it that way because one of the things that I'm very careful of is to have an understanding that no one saves anyone. No one is anyone's savior. You're your own savior. So my partner, in her being her authentic, her sovereign self, she being her sovereign self allowed the energy of love to flow through her and allowed me to see in her the mirror of myself and who it is that I can be. And in me seeing who I can be, who I wasn't being, I humbled myself to receive myself through her vessel's inclination. So that is how I'm very careful not to say that she saved me, or I'm very careful also when I say that she helped me, because you cannot help someone who does not want to help themselves, yet you can help them. However, to say that you are that person's savior is totally wrong. And then from this perspective, I see that we are all wounded healers, because her herself has her own wounds. We all have wounds. We all have traumas. We all come here to unseat trauma. No one in a human vessel is perfect. Every human being was birthed, and birthing is a trauma. You come through the birthing canal, through that portal, in your trauma suit. This is a trauma suit. Your flesh is a trauma suit. It's a finite body. That means that it's in a physical state of separation from the infinite. And that is the reality of the situation. So that is how I say physicality is an illusion. That is how I say time is an illusion. That is how I say money is an illusion. That is how I say plastic is an illusion. And plastic has its further degradation as an illusion different from the body, because plastic is, I would say, a second degree illusion, because things that are natural are in reality, and reality is also a type of physicality, and as such is a type of illusion. However, plastic is a second degree illusion, because plastic is from an idea of a natural polymer turned into a synthetic polymer, and then that synthetic polymer becomes plastic. Now, to continue in the idea of the wounded healer, one of the things that I am seeing as I'm being awoken, as I continue to awaken my mental to the reality of the experience that it is having, is that women are the feminine vessel. And as women are the feminine vessel, they are closer to source than men are. because they have the nurturing ability, they have the receptive quality in a higher degree than men. Now, that being said, as I'm looking around in this Aquarian age, the age of awakening, the age of information, the age of the new human, right? As I'm looking to see the awakening of the varying light bodies, the varying light workers, the varying light warriors, I'm looking to women in particularly, because a woman is the one who helped me to come into this mentality that I have. So I see a woman taking the lead, a woman taking the being the pioneer. So the feminine vessel, the dominant feminine vessel, is the one who is closer to being nurtured by the current energies in the earth to heal herself. And as she heals herself, then she has the capacity, or she has the flow within her to mirror that healing to a masculine, to other masculine vessels. And that is as it relates to the wounded healer and alchemizing or pain. Now, again, a woman is closer to alchemizing her pain than a man is closer to alchemizing his pain, because a man is more masculinated. A man is more egoic. And the ego is the energy or the archetype of the energy of fear. The misappropriated ego is the archetype of the energy of fear that protects us in that fear. And men are geared towards protecting and providing. The thing is that men have become so chronic in their masculinity that we tend to further that masculinity. And as you can see in society, women are becoming even more masculinated, stepping away from their femininity in an effort to survive, in an effort to become more reliant, to be more accepted in life. Women are becoming more masculinated in an effort to be more accepted, because women want to be accepted by men as men want to be accepted by women. The difference is that men are currently leading this vicious cycle of masculination. It is a vicious cycle, and it is in this cycle that women are being captivated, right? And choosing to be even more so masculinated, because women have the potential to be even more masculinated than men, because they have a superior vessel. So a woman who is more masculinated, at least not in the physical, because men for the most part are going to be stronger physically. On a holistic level, men in their vessels are stronger physically. On a holistic level also, women in their mental are stronger physically. So in this age of Aquarius, where you have these gadgets, where you have technology being used to the degree where the physicality of a man is not so much needed, particularly in wars, for example. You don't need the physicality of a man in these type of wars. These are technological warfares, even though ultimately it's a spiritual warfare. In the manifestation of the warfare that is taking place in physicality, women are going to outshine men, because they're going to be smarter. They're going to be as they become more masculinated, they will exhibit smarter tendency. If you notice, a woman or a girl child is more of a genius than a boy child. Typically, that is what it is. And as things progress, where the physicality of the human is in charge, a woman will be become more masculinated to be in charge. And so you have in today's society where you have women doing everything that a man can do and even better, right? However, that doesn't mean that this is a good thing. That does not mean that this is a good thing. That is an imbalance. And that is an imbalance that has gotten too imbalanced. So what I'm looking at now is for women to become even more feminine, is to step away from being masculinated. And this may mean for a while that a woman separates herself from a man. As in the example of me and my partner, we are partners, however, we are in a separate space. We share, we have a relationship, however, we have separate spaces. And for a woman who is in a relationship, that may be something that she may need to put to her partner so they can separate physically, so she can have a mental healing. Because what is happening is that people need, particularly women, because they are the leaders of healing, they are the leaders of nurturing. Women need a mental break. This is what I am saying. This is what I am seeing in society. As it has helped me, it has helped my partner. So I have experience in the validation that this is a modality that works. Women need a mental break. And when I say a mental break, they need to break the mental habits that they have tied to society. Thinking that society is sane. Society, as it is in this civil-lie-zation, is a broken civil-lie-zation. It is a broken society. And men have adapted their mentality to thinking that society is sane. Society is not sane. And there are many examples to show that society is not sane. And I'll give a brief example. If you look in nature, nature provides everything that a being, whether it is a bird, an ant, or a giraffe, whatever that being needs, nature provides it in abundance, right? One of the crazy things in life when we come here in this time, because it wasn't always like this, in this age, a person is not allotted a piece of land that they can work to secure their own food, secure their own shelter, secure their own clothing, secure the basic fundamentals of life. This was once a modality of life that was given. There was a time on earth, and for those who do not trust what it is that I'm saying and do not simply trust what it is that I'm saying, you can verify within your own soul. You can go to Google and look up a time when humans did not have to purchase land, when humans were simply allotted land and they worked the land for their survival, or they worked the land for their thriving, right? And we talk about the golden age. These are times of the golden age. And this is times of Kemet, when the land was in the mentality of humans, because the earth is always fertile. In the mind of human, though, it was fertile, and humans treated it as fertile, therefore being in a love frequency rather than a fear frequency. So I'm saying this is an example to show that humans in this current state of mind are insane, because we have taken away the ability for a human to simply be birthed on the land and be taught how to work the land so that they can be independent, so that they can be sovereign, so that they can focus on healing their trauma, healing their wounds, so as to emit the same love frequency that the earth is giving them, right? So that we can exude that frequency into the earth, onto the land, and therefore have a loving relationship, right? Seeing that this is not the common modality because of colonization, because of slavery, because of indoctrination, this is not the common modality in most parts of the earth. This is simply reserved now for what we call primitive society. And those primitive societies, for example, there are some in Africa, there are some in South America, there are some in Asia. I'm not so familiar of none of any in North America. Perhaps they are with the indigenous people, the so-called indigenous people, the native people, I should say. But it is the native people who would still have this. And as far as I'm seeing, all native people are under threat from the colonized world. So it's as if the colonized world keeps them in their native state as mini zoos. Things to go in and look at and say, this was a time when we used to do things this way. As if that way of living mentally is not superior. That is a superior mental way of living. Being in tune with the earth is a superior way of living. Never mind the technological advancements that we see. So that is to show an example of how insane we've become, where a person who is born or birthed into this civil-lie-zation, right? It's a lie. Into the civilization, into the socia-lie-zation, is not given the means by which they are to simply be in love with the earth. And the earth, this is not the earth doing this. This is the humans on the earth who is doing this. The earth has provided in abundance for all to have. It is the fear mentality that is within humans that prevents them from doing this. Okay. So what I'm saying is that women, the nurturers, the healers, the ones who are more inclined to being the wounded healer, right? And I'm speaking because I've received the healing from a woman. I've received the healing through a woman, I should say. I've received the healing of the feminine, of the earth, and the divine masculine through a woman, through the femininity of that woman, through the femininity of a divine woman. And I am saying that in this age, what it is that I am seeing as wounded healers who are alchemizing the trauma, what I am saying is that women, as far as I'm seeing, are more adept at being the nurturer. It is women who I am saying must separate from the wicked system to attend to themselves, attend to their trauma. And as they attend to their trauma, that trauma will be a nourishing ground. Because when you heal that trauma strengthens your feminine. And I'll give an example. I give this example before. When I was in doing inner childhood work, I got to see my 3-year-old, my 4-year-old. And this is under the instructions from my partner, who advised me to do inner childhood work, who advised me to take heed to the chakra system. And as I received her instructions and reciprocated those instructions, I went into doing inner childhood work and having the understanding of the chakras. So as I looked at my 3 and my 4-year-old, particularly my 4-year-old, I realized that I was abandoned. My father abandoned me at 4 years old, abandoned the family at 4 years old. And not only did my father abandon the family at 4 years old, I, my benevolent self, abandoned myself at 4 years old, right? Or I abandoned my benevolent self at 4 years old. And it wasn't until I was about 40 years old that I became present in the seat of that which was once abandoned, that I started to see what it means to be present as I'm sharing this rewiring in a vulnerable state of being present in this moment, right? So I'm giving an example of what it means to turn lead into gold. Lead signifies something heavy, signifies something dense, signifies darkness, signifies the darkness in which the seed of, in my case, being present is planted. And as I plant that seed of being present into the darkness, right, the light that is above attracts that seed. And as it attracts that seed of being present, that seed of being present is alchemized. It is alchemized into gold, and that gold shines through the darkness and becomes present. That is the process that I'm talking about of alchemization. And women are more susceptible, more inclined, more induced naturally with this procedure to heal themselves, and as a result of healing themselves, will be able to have a mirror that other males, that the masculine from the male can look into. And should that male humble itself, then that male will be able to heal itself. And that will begin a process of healing for those two people. And as a result, begin and continue a healing of growth, love, energy, beauty, joy, goodness, infinite nature, thriving. Humans thriving on the earth in a well-to-do manner. And I'm giving this example as simply an example. No different than Christ and Sophia did, or Christ and Mary Magdalene, a couple that the Bible chooses not to mention or doesn't mention it frequently enough, as what I'm experiencing Christ and Mary Magdalene energy with me and my current partner. And there are many other partners. I give the example of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie and his partner Empress Menen. And these are the type of relationships that foster good energy in the earth. So it is for, as I'm seeing, women to heal themselves more so than men. Men, they don't have an excuse. And I'm going to do a video on, as a matter of fact, I'm going to mention it here now, that it is the man who is at fault. Primarily speaking, it is the man, it is the masculine who is at fault, because the masculine is the provider and the protector. The masculine is the creator. The masculine is the creative, I should say. The masculine is the doer. So it is the man who did not do what he was supposed to do, and as a result, the woman followed suit, as women are following suit today in becoming more masculinated. So an understanding to have, and it is a very challenging understanding to have, is that what is happening in this patriarchal world, what is happening in this masculinated world, is a result of men not being men, of men not being masculine, of men not being in their divine masculine. Instead of being in their divine masculine, they're in their misappropriated ego. And as they are in their misappropriated ego, the women have followed suit into their misappropriated ego and have become masculinated. Right? So one of the tenets, I could call it, one of the modalities of understanding, and I know it is challenging because I face the challenges myself, is to understand that it is always the masculine's fault. And as a result, primarily speaking, it is always the man's fault. It is the man's fault while we are here today. to give a further example, when Christ said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they have done," Christ, the one who they call Yeshua, refused to fight back in terms of physical warfare, right? Christ refused to fight back in terms of physical warfare. And there's an example where Peter, one of his so-called disciples, wanted to fight back. And I believe he even chopped somebody's ears off. And Christ said, no, that is not the way. The way is not to have physical warfare, because there is such a thing as reincarnation. And not only because there is such a thing as reincarnation, there is a thing such as karma. And those who know better must do better. So the man who is truly a man, the man who is a masculine man, who is in full awareness of himself and knows that, and knows his purpose, that his purpose here is to do no harm. A man's purpose here is to do no harm, and particularly in practice to being a nurturer. The woman is the nurturer, and the man aspires to be that nurturer. In aspiring to be that nurturer, the man must do no harm. And it's a very challenging concept. Even when someone challenges you to the death, you do not pick up weapons of destruction towards that being, because then you become that being. There is no such thing as death. Death itself is an illusion. We simply transition into another state. The soul is indestructible. Spirit is indestructible. The soul can transition, and the spirit transitions into greater spirit. And this is why Christ simply submitted. This is why Mary Magdalene, Sophia, simply knows that this is the highest form of a man that there can be. So when men chose not to use that same modality, forgive them, Father, for they know that what they have done, and accepted the induction of the fear from the oppressor, the induction of the fear from the colonizer. When men did this, they set a bad, malevolent example for the rest of men to follow. And it is the native people who have done this. Because, as I've said before on other videos, the native people are the people who are closer to source. The non-native people are the people who are further away from source. So in acceptance of what has taken place on earth, the colonized people are the native people. The non-colonized people or the colonizer, I should say, are the non-native people. These are the people with more fear. You cannot. It is insanity to expect anything. Expectation is based in fear. Simply accept. In accepting what has taken place on the earth, you see that it is the white race, for example, particularly induced with the more fearful Neanderthal gene. It is the white race that has the most fear, and they put fear on their own people, and so they build momentum until they colonize their own people. They colonize the Europe, and they spread along the world in a parasitic manner, and they colonize all the native people. Now, what I am saying is that all the native people, should they have done like Christ, quite possibly they would have all died. In many instances, for example, in Haiti, which we call Haiti, the population there, in one instance, in one story I heard, the population went from about 3 million to 100,000 once the white man hit that space, right? And it could have been, in other instances, they have wiped out entire population of people. And what I am saying is that that is a more benevolent way. It sounds crazy, I know, because I'm hearing myself go inside my head, you are crazy. I'm hearing the benevolent aspect, the ego within me saying that you are crazy to let somebody kill you. It's not that I'm letting them kill me. I'm being sovereign. In being sovereign, I know better. And those who know better do better. It is no measure of sanity to do insane things. It is no measure of sanity to do insane things. So what I'm saying is that it has been the man's fault. It has been the man's fault in his masculinity through being induced with fear and thinking that he can protect in a fearful manner. You cannot protect in a fearful manner. And as such, the man is at fault. The masculine is at fault. And because the masculine is at fault and that never got corrected, the feminine, the misappropriated feminine now, this is the corrupted feminine, is following that masculine and being more masculinated. And that is something that in society has to be reversed. I have chosen to reverse it. A person who is on earth, most people who is on earth, particularly in our lifetime, anyone who is watching this, is never going to reverse this. Most people. It's not practical. So this is even why I'm stressing that if you are alignment with this video, like, comment, subscribe, share if you dare, speak. Let us have a conversation in the comment section. If ones and ones or ones and zeros, as I like to say, would like to have further conversations, ask for an email. I will give you my email and we can have email conversations to develop a stronger relationship. Because like-minded people must gravitate towards like-minded people. Regardless of race, like-mind is like-minded. So regardless of race, color, class, creed, like-mind is like-mind. This is how we transcend the physical. So I'm making a plea, as I'm seeing, witnessing within my consciousness, that it is for the woman who is in the more feminine vessel to, in her nurturing stance, be more healed. And as she alchemizes her healing, she will be a better mirror for the man to heal himself, for the masculine to heal himself. And with that, I say, Ashe, Amen, and Namaste. Each one, reach one, teach one.